and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog. James, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Just to let people know that the Arsecast Extra schedule could be a bit all over the place in the weeks and months ahead because, top secret, you've got that role in the new Star Wars movie directed by Martin Scorsese. Sure. Shit. Let the cat out of the bag there. Fuck.
I can't remember what job. Was it on one of the Patreon pods where... Or was it on the Arsecast Extra where we talked about some job that I'd got that we'd kind of made up? I can't remember.
I can't remember either. So many podcasts.
Something like that. Anyway, yes. But I guess sometimes it will be early, sometimes it will be late. It will be a surprise every time.
Yeah, for us too. Just to let you know that the usual sort of Monday morning, Monday afternoon, lunchtime schedule, we'll try and stick to that as much as we can, but there are going to be times where it's going to be out of our control. So it could be a Sunday or it could be a Monday evening. So I just wanted to let people know, it's good to keep people informed so there's no disappointment, all that
it's
kind
part
of
of people's routine. People are going to be upset. But, needs must. And listen, sometimes you get a very exciting match of football like Arsenal had on Saturday, and it means you get to talk about it all the sooner.
Yeah, well, that is true. And what an Emirates Cup win it was. I mean, in the pantheon
We've done the double already, Andrew. To add to the Florida Cup, the pre-season haul continues. I think there was some sort of trophy they gave us in Baltimore as well.
Oh, really? What was it? The kind of nice food in the press box trophy?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I presented that to the guys. We're racking up pre-season silverware. Next, surely the Premier League, inevitably. Sure,
we did have a load of questions like that from the Discord. Luke Kempner said, how many points will we win the league by? Spaceman Trooper says, goodly morning, gents. What month are we going to win the league this season? And by how many points? I mean, it feels...
It'd be nice if we could have it in the bag before the World Cup. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think that's possible.
Well, let's see. Yeah, let's see. We shouldn't be bound by logic or mathematics in our aspirations this season.
Well, look, it is another Emirates Cup triumph for the Arsenal at home, and this is the first preseason game that I watched. For 90 minutes.
Oh, okay. Real time.
Yeah, real time. It was on at a reasonable hour. I don't go to bed these days until, probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sure. Get my head down. I can stay awake that long. But, it went better than I thought it was going to go. Sevilla are a decent team. Maybe they're a little further back in their preparations than we are, but that blitz... That first half blitz was really something, wasn't it?
Yeah. If they weren't further back in their preparations, they are now, after what Arsenal did to them. I mean, it was quite impressive. And obviously Arsenal had played in midweek behind closed doors, a defeat to Brentford with a very... I guess, a lot of the squad players played in that game, which was an indication that this was going to be a very strong lineup. I think there's every chance this is the lineup that will play in the Premier League against Crystal Palace on Friday night. I think this is the lineup that started against Chelsea as well. So a bit of consistency there. And they came out the blocks absolutely flying. I mean, I actually am one of the people who thought, it won't sell out. I'll pick up a ticket near the time. And such is the excitement around pre-season and some of the new arrivals and the form that we've been showing that it did indeed sell out. I hear there was a great atmosphere around the ground before the game and at the game, and Arsenal seemed to respond to that and came out the blocks flying.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this is I thought around, I don't know, the hour mark or so, we were going to get quite a few changes. I thought we would get, substitutions, players coming on for a run around, making sure that players weren't injured or anything like that. But I think it was around 75 minutes when Bukayo Saka took a whack in the box. He went to kick the ball. I think he kicked the defender and he hurt himself and he's lying there. And I'm thinking, fuck, come on. We don't want any of this nonsense. And I'm going, come on, Mikel, you get him off straight away. Come on, straight away. And it still took a few minutes for the changes to be made. I think he played, 78, 79 minutes, whatever it was. And that was how long it took for Mikel Arteta to make his first change. So clearly the plan for this game was, to give them as close to 90 minutes as possible, to make sure they're as match fit, as match ready as possible for Friday night. Because I think we had a question about pick your team for the Crystal Palace game on Friday night. I mean, you don't pick anything different than that, do you?
No, I mean, I guess the only players who you would say might be in consideration were they fully fit would be Kieran Tierney and Takehiro Tomiyasu. They were both involved in a session that took place on the Emirates pitch after the game. I think all the subs and the players who weren't involved took part in kind of a fairly involved session. I think it was a bit more than just a warm down.
Well, you've got to warm up to warm down. They didn't even do the warming up bit,
Exactly. So, but the biggest issue for them is even if they're in full contact training next week, they haven't really got any minutes, as Mikel Arteta said in his press conference. So, I think probably they've had a suspicion for some time this would be the starting 11 on the opening day. And I think it was interesting to see them given that long on the pitch. And I guess the encouraging thing is it looks like some understanding is developing and some really interesting sort of tactical developments, both in the back four and the front four, really.
Yeah, I watched a video last night on Tifo. JJ Bull did a really good tactical. I wasn't getting emotional there. My voice is still a little bit croaky. So
it is really good. So that might be why.
Yeah, just the thought of it is bringing me to tears. The beauty, yeah. The way he moves those little bits around with his soft Scottish lilt. It was very interesting. And in particular, the way that the two fullbacks, as you say, the back four, the two fullbacks tucking into central midfield when we go forward. And, the two players in question, both very good ball players, Zinchenko and Ben White at right back. And when you look at that back four, I know we're going to talk about the goals and we're going to talk about all of that because, that's the most exciting part. But, I looked at that back four yesterday. I looked at the goalkeeper behind them and, I'm looking at that going, holy cow. It's not long ago we had people like Mustafi, like Socrates, like David Luiz, who I know had some good moments for Arsenal, but was capable of some, really poor stuff as well.
Lichtsteiner,
and you're thinking, Jesus, this is an impressive, physical, dominant, manly, if that's the wrong word to use, I don't quite know, but you look at Ben White, you look at Saliba, you look at Gabriel, you look at Zinchenko, you look at Ramsdale, you're thinking, Jesus, this is high quality defensive unit here. And I like that because I do think it's obviously part of what Mikel Arteta has done in the last 18 months, 2 years is sort of add to the defensive side of our game. Last summer, most of the signings were defensive rather than offensive, and we've obviously changed that around a bit this summer. But I was looking at that going, that is a good platform from which to build a team which can attack. Because you can't build a team that attacks when your defenders are helter-skelter,
Yeah, absolutely. And for long spells of this game, when Arsenal were in possession, certainly when the ball was in the opponent's half, it was kind of a 2-3-5, with the centre-backs, Saliba and Gabriel being entrusted to kind of have the recovery pace if needed, White and Zinchenko tucked in almost to central midfield as deep playmakers, and then in front of that, so much energy and speed and directness. So, you mentioned that back five, and this is certainly true of them, but I think it's probably true throughout the team. It is the age profile as well that makes it so exciting. These are guys coming into their prime years rather than being at the end of them, and that makes such a difference too.
Yeah, it does. But look, clearly what caught the eye yesterday against Sevilla was the attack and the way we attack and the difference in the way we attack. What was the Mikel Arteta quote? Did you see that quote that he dropped after the game? Where is it here? If I can find it. Let's see. Okay. He was talking about Gabriel Jesus, and he said, what we're seeing is that everybody, not just Gabby, plays at that intensity, that willingness to win the ball, to promote mistakes and to play in the opposition's half as much as possible. You cannot do that if the players in front are walking. They're not tracking. They don't have that instinct and that intention to provoke things that we want, and Gabby is phenomenal at that.
Yeah.
You know, without casting aspersions or anything else about anyone else, but I mean, you can see the difference. You can see the difference and what a difference it makes to the way that you can play.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that Arteta used the word instincts, actually. You know, he didn't talk about ability to do it, and I'm sure that's a big part of the difference, but it is in Jesus's nature to do this. Yeah. It is a fundamental part of who he is as a player, and always has been. And there are few better in the world at that kind of harrying and pressing and off-the-ball work. It has energised the front line. Because Martin Odegaard, to be honest, I think had shown in his 18 months at Arsenal a willingness and a capacity to press, but it wasn't always matched by the intensity of the guys around him. And I think putting Jesus in there, as well as Martinelli, who came into the team obviously in the last year or so, it has just lifted the intensity of the whole thing. And Sevilla, who might have been a bit behind and, you know, certainly are a couple of signings away from where they want to be, just couldn't live with it at all, particularly in that opening period. And Arsenal were absolutely electric.
Did you see the Pep Guardiola quote that was doing the rounds? A little interview he did, I think it was before the game anyway. It was at the end of the week, and he was talking about Gabriel Jesus, and he said, he is the best striker defender I have ever found to play in three positions. He can play 5 minutes, he plays the best 5 minutes of his life. He plays 90 minutes, he will give everything. I mean, it's unusual for, you know, a striker to be described as a defender as well, but you can see absolutely what he means by that. Like, he's not a centre half, but, you know, what he gives you from the front, like if attack is your first line of defence, well, this guy is absolutely brilliant at it.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of always sensed or understood that Arteta wanted that from a centre forward, and I think for some people that was almost a frustration at times, you know, that those aspects of centre forward play was something Arteta focused on. But the trick with Jesus, of course, is that he's putting the ball in the back of the net as well, and his, you know, he got a hat trick yesterday. He can't do much better than that. And I think, you know, he does seem someone who is capable of, as Guardiola put it, being a striker as well as a defender. So my only word of caution is that it's pre-season and these are friendly games. But in terms of his impact in his short period of time with the club, you could not ask for anything more than what he's done to this point. It's the fit and the ease with which he's kind of seamlessly stepped into that front line is incredibly exciting. And I mean, if it carries on like this into the season proper, Arsenal are really onto a good thing. Yeah,
I know what you're saying, you know, about pre-season, and he, you know, the proof of the pudding will be what he does in the Premier League and in the Europa League, and, you know, all of that stuff. You know, when the games are competitive, when they mean something, when there are points at stake, of course we all understand that. But, you know, I would much rather be sitting here talking to you and talking to the listeners today, like, full of anticipation and excitement about what Gabriel Jesus could potentially do based on what I've seen him do in these preseason games, than sitting here going, well, you know, it's only preseason, he might need a little bit of time to settle in, you can't make any judgments yet, etc., etc. Like, we all understand, we all know what's what, but when you see a guy almost transform your team and how it plays, it's really difficult not to be excited about what he can do when the games matter. Because doing it in these games, is an indication that he can do it in other games. And I think the first goal in particular really highlights everything that he is going to bring to this team and what he brings that is different. He picked up a ball on the left-hand side. I think it was it Ben White? Crossfield pass from Ben White, picked up the ball, drove inside, made a pass, kept running, and by the time the ball had broken in the box, he was in there. He was first to the ball. And I love his movement. I love his pace. I love the way he has this drive and this energy to get in the box. But what I love most, I think, is the quick feet, how rapidly he can adjust his body, get a shot away. He had to sort of stop, check, and then hit the ball with his left foot for that first goal. And we've seen forwards in the not too distant past take a touch, take another touch, and by the time they do that, they're crowded out and you can't even get a shot away. So all of those things combined really make a huge difference to what we can do from an attacking perspective.
Definitely, yeah. And that was an interesting goal because it was White with that crossfield pass from that sort of central midfield area. Jesus, who... there's a lot of interchanging of positions at times from that front four, front three yesterday, a lot of fluidity, times where Saka popped up on the left as well as the right, Jesus and Martinelli kind of combined and swapped on occasion. And that's also brought an element of unpredictability, I think, to the Arsenal attack, which, you haven't always been able to say in the last few years. So I loved that goal. To be fair, I loved all his goals. I mean, The second one is a great ball from Martinelli. And I think he was onside. I know it looked off, and there wasn't a kind of massively convincing replay, but I think he was just about on, and it's a great run and a really good first-time finish. That's
a really interesting combination, isn't it? Martinelli, Jesus. Sure. And I think the quality of Martinelli's delivery, his set-piece delivery was really high, and that kind of... It looks to me like it's something he's worked on. I don't know about you, but that kind of lower, almost, dare I say, Beckham-esque delivery, the sort of flatter trajectory so the ball gets there quicker, and that link up between him and Gabriel Jesus, from the right hand side, that cross to the back post. I know Tim Silman talked about that a bit, that kind of goal that he scores. That was a superb goal, and I think we'll see that link up pretty often this season.
Definitely. And actually, you mentioned Martinelli's delivery. I mean, I thought Arsenal looked dangerous on set pieces yesterday, and that's partly a consequence of better, flatter, pacier delivery, but also the size we talked about, with those players coming into the back four we have now. But yeah, love this goal. Great run, great ball, great finish. Martinelli, pretty unlucky, I thought, not to get a goal on the day. He worked so hard, and he was very unselfish as well in the last minute, wasn't he, when he went through and had Eddie with him. But, if you're playing in those wide areas, you need to be a provider as well as a goal scorer. And if he can add that string to his bow, then... Because I think a lot of the time, the criticism of Martinelli is, is he sometimes too direct? Does his head go down? Is he always looking to get the shot away? To be honest, it's not a criticism I massively agree with, because I think that's part of his strength, that directness. And I wouldn't want to take that threat out of his game. But I think he can be a provider as well. And he showed that with that brilliant pass. Yeah,
I mean, look, it doesn't matter really who scores the goals once we score the goals. There was part of me going, go on, just finish. You're one-on-one with the goalkeeper. You're in the last minute of a game. In preseason, we're winning 5-0. This is a chance for you to just sort of maybe build your confidence as a finisher. But I suppose the kind of team ethic Mikel Arteta is trying to build means that if you can provide a 99% chance to a teammate when you've got I don't know, is it 50-50? How do you say one-on-one? I don't know what the percentage is, but if you roll it to Eddie Nketiah, who can roll it into an empty net, I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's going in the back of the net. Maybe the goalkeeper will make a good save. So he's playing the odds, I guess, on the basis of what the manager has told him, whether it's 5-0 in a preseason game or whether it's 0-0 in a Premier League game in the 90th minute. Do you want him to take the shot or do you want him to roll it across to a player who's in a better position? So I suppose it's about the consistency of your decision-making based on the training and the instructions that you're being given by the manager.
Yeah, I like that he rolled it across to Eddie. I think it shows a maturity. I mean, Thierry Henry was the greatest goal scorer in the history of this club, but I've lost count the amount of times he played in teammates in similar positions. You know, he could be so unselfish in those scenarios. I think you've always got to put the team first. Martinelli did. And actually, you know, it's never going to make as many headlines as Jesus' impact, and it is slightly different. But Eddie Nketiah has scored in a lot of these pre-season friendlies, and that's no bad thing because we're certainly going to need more than one centre-forward over the coming months.
Bukayo Saka scored the first goal from the penalty spot.
I feel like, was there a penalty that we got last season? Maybe in the... I want to say that
Chelsea?
I don't know. There was a home league game, I'm sure, which was very similar bump in the back. And Sevilla were furious about the award, weren't they? But
they were. It looked pretty stone cold to me. You know, it's one of those where I think you, as a defender, you chance your arm a bit and just say, no, he stopped momentum, not really. But I mean, when you saw the replay, he basically shoved him in the back, and Saka made sure. Yeah, no complaints at all.
Saka puts it away, and then the second goal Saka got, which I think was what made it 4-0.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just a catastrophe, really, from a Sevilla perspective, wasn't it?
It was a bad kick out from the goalkeeper, Bono. He still couldn't find what he was looking for at that point. But I mean, you know, I think in part you have to look at the way that Arsenal were pressing and look at how high up the pitch they were pressing and the intensity with which they were pressing, which maybe just puts that little bit of doubt in the goalkeeper's mind.
I guess so. That's true. And Arsenal, that was one of those instances where, you know, the front line had rotated a little. I think Saka was on the left, Martinelli on the right. A Martinelli pressure actually forced the ball back to the goalkeeper. Then Jesus was closing the angle, Saka closing down as well. Xhaka and Odegaard, if you look at it, are actually not far behind. I mean, when Saka strikes the ball, you know, 5 Arsenal attacking players are within 25 yards of the goal against 3 Sevilla defenders. That said, the goalkeeper won't reflect on that one too fondly. Not only did he pass it straight to the Arsenal player, it seemed to go, I think, through his legs as well. So not a great moment for him.
No, not a great
good
moment.
work from the Arsenal attack.
Yeah, and then, you know, we went a long time without scoring a goal, at which point I wanted, you know, change of owner, change of manager, change of technical director. I was, you know, glutton for more goals. But, you know, when you do blitz a team like that, you know, the one thing that I did worry about, and there was a couple of little fouls from Sevilla, I was a little bit worried that they might get super frustrated and someone would get a kick and everything else.
Yeah, Saka got picked up a knock, didn't he?
Yeah, there was a couple, you know, but I thought maybe, you know what it's like when you're playing and you're 4-0 down after 19 minutes or whatever it is. It's like, well, I'm just going to kick some fucker. But thankfully that didn't happen. And look, it's understandable to an extent, isn't it, that when you are 4-0 up, you know, you do take your foot off the gas just a little bit.
Yeah, and I wonder if the instructions from Mikel Arteta might have been quite different in that second half, you know?
Yeah.
As much as it would have been fun to say, go out and play with the same intensity, maybe he said, you know, let's try and exhibit some control or, you know, change the pace of the game. I also think Sevilla adapted what they were doing a little bit too. They put a bit more pressure on our defenders in possession. They didn't take quite so many risks at the back. But, you know, in the end, Arsenal's quality came through. And actually, when the subs came on, I thought it brought a sort of an energisation to the team, which enabled us to go on and get a couple of extra goals. And the Jesus hat-trick goal, by the way, which made it 5-0, you mentioned his quick footwork and good first touch. That was the best example, really, I thought. Oh,
it really was. Because I thought it had gone in. Gabriel's header was saved, but Jesus got there, and before the defender can even steady himself, really, he's got the shot away. Like, it's in the top corner. The defender's going, okay, I'm here, and then, like, bam, bam, and it's in the top corner. You're like, holy fuck, this guy has quick feet, quick, accurate feet. Which is, you know, an important aspect. I mean, quick as you like if he's fucking them, you know, over the bar or whatever. But like top corner, bang.
And I do think that for a striker, confidence is absolutely critical. And the pre-season that he's had for Arsenal and that introduction to the Emirates Stadium, he should be going into the Premier League season feeling on top of the world. And that is what you want for your centre forward.
Yeah, and the team as well. You know, going into the first game of the season, they've had a very, very good pre-season. You know, again, you chalk it down, you put it to one side. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. But like I said, you know, when talking about Gabriel Jesus, I'd much rather my team was going into the first game of the season feeling happy and confident and, you know, looking good, technically good, physically good, scoring goals, not conceding many goals. You know, I prefer that as a scenario going into the first game of the season. It doesn't mean that anything is guaranteed or assured, but you know, you have to try and build things in football, and this is a team that looks like, you know, after the disappointment of the end of last season, it looks like it is determined to, you know, to improve and to keep the trajectory on the upwards. And yeah, look, I don't think you could ask, you know, on the pitch for much more from pre-season than we got.
No, and I think the first Premier League game is exactly the right sort of test, because I think in many ways Selhurst Park is where the wheels came off a bit for Arsenal last season. You know, in terms of both the result and the players lost to injury. I don't think any of us will look back on that match particularly fondly, and it will be a test. So, yeah, if Arsenal, you know, are looking for an opportunity to show their mettle, then Selhurst Park definitely provides it. And I'm cautiously optimistic about the way the team's looking. How could you not be after the pre-season you've had? You know, maybe you can debate whether or not pre-season matters, but we'd all rather have a good pre-season than a bad one.
Exactly. And you know, afterwards, Mikel Arteta, you know, was asked about the players who weren't there: Tomiyasu, Tierney, Vieira, Smith Rowe. He is expecting them to be available for Friday based on the comments that he made post-game. So that, you know, is another little boost. I don't think any of them are ready to start. But to have them on the bench and to have those options on the bench will be very, very useful, because it is going to be a tough opening game. But look, we can talk more about Crystal Palace during the week, and we'll be previewing that in all the usual places. What else? I mean, I suppose you should talk about Martin Odegaard being named club captain.
Yeah, before the game they announced it, right?
No surprise, I don't think.
No great surprise, and we wondered, you know, when they would choose to do it. I think, I think. I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because it's felt so inevitable for quite some time that, in some ways, some of the other candidates have kind of internally dismissed them, if you see what I mean. Because we've kind of known it would be Odegaard based on the way things have gone over the past few months, but it does feel like a good choice. I mean, he's a player who is going to play a lot of football, is the right age, I think, for this group. And in terms of his sort of professionalism and his application, he's kind of exactly what Mikel Arteta wants from a player. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a comment more than a question, really, on the Discord from C White 90, who said, "Have we taken enough time to reflect on Martin Odegaard's Arsenal journey? He went from a lone player to signing to the obvious choice for club captain in 18 months, and he's just 23 years old. It's incredible, you know." And I think there's something to that, isn't there? That, you know, he wasn't, he joined Real Madrid at such an early age, and there was such hype and expectation about him, and you know, he did have good loan spells, there's no two ways about it. Great loan spell at Real Sociedad, and he had a very good loan spell with us, but you know, to come in to become that important, like you remember, I'm sure, like there was a point last season, was it around the Leicester game? I think it was.
He wasn't in the 11.
He wasn't in the 11, and there was
an extended period. I think it was about 8 games, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a few games where, you know, people were questioning whether or not he deserved his place in the team, and I think it was Lacazette who was starting at the time with Aubameyang, but very quickly made himself extremely important. I think he's a very intelligent guy and a very intelligent player, and that's why he's got sort of the ear of the manager, if you like, when it comes to on-pitch instructions and tactical things and everything else. So yeah, I think it's a very good appointment. There was another question as well from, where is it here? Paddy, also on the Discord, he said, I think Odegaard's an excellent choice for captain, but who would be your choice for vice-captain? Personally, I would give it to Saka if it means he'll sign the contract, but it could be a bit early for that responsibility. What do you guys think? And I don't know. I mean, when Mikel Arteta was captain, Per Mertesacker was the official vice-captain. I don't know if we're doing that. Are we doing that?
Well,
I know there's a leadership group, isn't there?
America, and he said it'll be a captain and a wider group. And he didn't mention a vice. I mean, it may be that there's a hierarchy within that group and there is a clear vice, but he spoke about it as a captain and then a kind of leadership senior group who will support the captain and also kind of, represent the squad. So it's a good question. I mean, when he's not there, who would we expect it to be? I mean, people who've worn the armband of late include the likes of Tierney, Holding. We've even seen Xhaka with it here and there in the second halves of games.
Do you think Xhaka could be like the unofficial vice captain, if you like?
Maybe. I mean, it's such a point of pride with him that I'm not sure how keen he is to wear the armband again, given what happened last time. I mean, it would, I suppose, be kind of the ultimate endpoint of his redemption arc. But I'm also not sure it massively matters to him. I think he's basically the same game in, game out, whether or not he's captain. I think Saka would be quite an interesting sort of symbolic choice. I know he's not a chest-thumping captain in the way that you envisage, but...
Well, neither is Odegaard, so,
Exactly, and he is a symbol of the football club, So, I mean, who do you think what will constitute the wider leadership group, would you imagine?
I would imagine Kieran Tierney.
Yeah.
I would imagine Ben White. I wouldn't be surprised if, one of the new signings like Jesus or Zinchenko was in there because of what they bring in terms of mentality and experience. But I mean, how big can you have it? How big do you need it? And look, at the end of the day, I think Odegaard said it himself, leadership isn't just down to the captain or the vice captain. It's something that pretty much you want from everybody as much as possible. Not everyone is a natural leader. We know that there are players who are just happy to be there, get on with their jobs and everything else. But, it really depends what your definition of leadership is. Is it, being professional, doing your job, taking responsibility on the pitch, etc., etc.? Those are things that you can ask for players, whether or not they're natural leaders, in inverted commas.
Yeah. I think also there are people within the group whose seniority or longevity at the club will see them included. Certainly somebody like Xhaka, Holding. I wonder if even, I've left field examples like Mohamed El Neni. I think it'll be as much about a sort of personality and contribution to the group as importance to the team. But I'm not sure that will be made public. I'm not sure there'll be a kind of announcement of that. It's sort of an internal dressing room thing. But
yeah,
in answer to the original question, who will wear it when Odegaard is out? I'd be happy with Saka. I'd be happy with Saka. Some may feel it's a big burden on young shoulders, but he's got the number 7 shirt. He's probably one of the best players in the team. Doesn't seem to have bothered him too much thus far.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think Tierney is probably he was the guy who wore it quite a bit last season as well. So it might be him, but of course, much will depend on fitness and everything else.
Yeah.
Some people might be a little uneasy at the sort of handing the captaincy or leadership position to someone as a kind of incentive for them to stay. But I'm not sure the two things would be connected. I guess it depends what Mikel Arteta thinks of Bukayo Saka and whether or not this is something that he needs thrust upon him. After a period in his career where he had a lot thrust upon him and was in the spotlight in a very, very big way after what happened in the final of Euro 2020.
Yeah, and that's something with who people who are working with every day will be in a better position to assess. There's plenty of players there I'd be comfortable with wearing it though. Xhaka, White, Tierney, whoever it might be.
Yeah, it's good that we're not looking at the squad going, who?
Yeah, well, which was the case, not too long ago, and I think, but yeah, Odegaard's. You make a good point about the speed of his sort of ascendancy to Arsenal captain, and we shouldn't be surprised he's one of several international captains within the squad. But yeah, he's someone who has always, developed quite quickly, and it's all been picked up by Madrid very early on. It hasn't been a smooth journey since then, but I get the sense that he's absolutely determined to go to the very top. And yeah, I think in terms of his attitude, his talent, his mentality, he's a natural choice. And in some ways, he's a bit of a sort of mini Mikel. So it doesn't surprise me that Arteta would choose him as his representative on the field.
And I think as well, it also tallies with what's happened over the last 18 months or so at Arsenal. The change in the age profile of the squad, people who've come through and made themselves really important very quickly. Someone like Emile Smith Rowe is a great example of that, who was, not available, not playing because he was injured, in fairness. But as soon as he got into the team, became really important. And this changing profile of the team, of the squad, et cetera, is sort of reflected in Martin Odegaard. So, yeah. What else should we talk about in part one? Nuno Tavares is gone?
Nuno Tavares is gone. I mean, listen, Marseille seems to have worked out quite well for William Saliba. So let's hope it can be another one of those. I think it's the right decision. Having signed Zinchenko and having Zinchenko and Tierney, we talked about the potential of fielding in the Europa League, and I think that's true. It would have been a good option, but also being with Marseille for a full season really enables him to actually settle somewhere, get a run of games, establish himself in the team, and potentially play a full campaign of first team football. And I think that would do him the world of good, and the situation can then be reassessed next summer.
I mean, if I were to put you on the spot and say, from 1 to 10, where 1 is completely unlikely and 10 is totally likely, what would you say? What would you grade his chances of coming back to Arsenal and playing for us again? Because I think I'd be quite low on this one, particularly when you've got players like Zinchenko and Tierney.
Yeah, it's sort of a paradox, isn't it? It's tricky because, obviously, the if he doesn't do well at Marseille, then I think that doesn't bode well for him at Arsenal at all. If he does do well for Marseille, there's every chance they're going to want to keep him. And with Arsenal already having 2 left backs, then they may be open to that. I think a lot will depend on Kieran Tierney, actually. I think that this is a really big season for him because of the injury problems he's had over the last few years, because of the challenge he now faces from the arrival of Zinchenko. I think this is a massive season in his Arsenal career, and how it goes may determine what happens to him next summer. If he, for example, falls behind Zinchenko in the pecking order for the Premier League games over the course of this campaign, I can't see him being happy with that next summer. And then you're looking at a situation where maybe he does move on and maybe Tavares does come in. So I'd say it's probably more likely than not that Tavares leaves in the end, just because I'm not convinced he's an Arteta guy, as it were. But I think that whole left-back area is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a long time ago now. I think it was probably around the game we lost against Spurs where we played 35 crosses, something like that. It was one of the lockdown games. But I remember having a conversation on here about how I think Kieran Tierney's a very good fullback, but I'm not sure he's exactly a Mikel Arteta fullback. And I still kind of have that nagging doubt. And if anything, the signing of Zinchenko and the pursuit of Lisandro Martinez makes me think that all the more.
Yeah, I mean, we did have a question.
That's not to say there won't be games where he's going to be necessary.
I agree.
You know?
And like, I think, I think we forget that last season, Kieran Tierney probably had his best season defensively for Arsenal. And I know we're talking about the fullbacks inverting and playing in field quite a lot and everything else. But defensively, he was very, very good, very solid. But I agree with you that this is a big season for him. There was a question on Twitter from Greylow who said, what do you think about Tierney's long-term prospects at the club? I'm worried about his ability to stay healthy, and I wonder if Arsenal are prepping him for a sale at the end of the season. And I understand those concerns. I also remember last season when Nuno Tavares came in and did well, there were similar conversations like, is this the end for Kieran Tierney? It's like, well, we might need to see a little bit more from Nuno Tavares before, we get a bit carried away with ourselves here. I think the thing about Tavares, for me anyway, it's that he's much more of a wing-back than a full-back. And he may well do very well at Marseille, where they play, with wing-backs. I think the flaws in his game are too easily exposed when he's playing as a fullback. And I think that's the major impediment for him, even if you have Zinchenko and Kieran Tierney in the pecking order ahead of him. So I know Mikel Arteta said this is a development loan, it'll be great for his progress and all that kind of stuff. I just can't really see much of a future for him. I hope he does really well in Marseille, because at the very least what it will do is, give Arsenal a decision to make. And if he does well and Marseille want to buy him and other clubs are looking at him going, hey, this guy's pretty good, we could take a chance on him. We might be in a position next season where you're thinking, okay, this is a guy we could sell for a few quid, rather than where we are with many of the players that we don't want in the squad right now, where we're struggling to move them on. So
absolutely, yeah. And that comes back to kind of the Edu conversation that we had last week about moving players on. Tavares is someone who anyone who's watched him play for Arsenal will tell you he's got flaws as well as strengths. But there were a number of European clubs who were really interested in taking him, albeit on loan in the first instance. But if he does well, there probably is a profit to be made there for Arsenal. And a lot of that is to do with his age and his potential and his upside. So I think that's a good development for the squad. And I do think that it's really interesting, this set of fullbacks that Arsenal potentially have at their disposal now. I mean, Zinchenko and Tierney, I don't think you could really get too much more different exponents of that left-back position. And, they both have strengths and weaknesses. Tierney, I think, is definitely a better defender, certainly around the penalty box. Probably less of an effective passer than Zinchenko. Tierney may be a better crosser or better at getting to the byline, better at providing width, whereas Zinchenko much better in the kind of internal midfield areas. And it may be a kind of a pick and choose approach depending on the opponent. I think even on the right-hand side, some of the same conversations can be had. Although I think Tomiyasu and White are closer as a pairing than Tomiyasu and Cedric, certainly. Yeah,
but I mean, I think that in itself is an interesting development, isn't it? That the presence of Saliba means that you can use White at right back, and he's such a good footballer that he can do the job the way that Mikel Arteta wants him to do the job. And it's not a unique observation to say that the difference between Tomiyasu and Cedric, I don't even want to talk about quality, but if you talk about style, the difference is enormous. It is literally chalk and cheese. So having someone like Ben White in that right back position just makes a lot more sense, and that comes from having a better quality option at centre half, with all due respect to him, than Rob Holding. So,
yeah, and we haven't really spoken about Saliba's performance against Sevilla, but he was impressive again. Some nice touches that you knew were going to get clipped up and
oohs and ahs. Yeah, we had a couple of questions on him, so I was waiting.
Okay, maybe we'll do that in part 2. Then.
We'll do that in part 2. Just very finally for part 1, there were questions about transfers. Mikel Arteta saying we're still hoping to do something if the market allows us to do that. You've seen some movement in the other direction in the last few days, so we want to get the perfect balance and the plan we wanted right at the beginning. He said whether we can accomplish that or not is another story, but I'm happy with where we are now. And I think, I have to agree. I think I'm pretty happy with the squad that we have right now going into the new season. Like everybody, I'll take more. I want more. I'm greedy. Give me new signings. Give me better players any day of the week, but I'm not going into this, the first game of the season going, oh, Jesus, we've got a big problem in that position or that position or that position. Like, you can always add more quality. You can always add more depth. I think it's right that there might be one or two areas of concern, but there isn't anything outstanding where you're going, shit. We got to get something done before Friday. Otherwise, we could be fucked. So I don't think, the squad is in bad shape. I think it's too big. We've definitely got to move some players on. But, are you still heartened by the idea that they're looking to do more and bring somebody else in as and when they can do that based on what seems to be the case anyway on more players leaving?
Yeah, heartened, but I'm not that surprised, really. I mean, it was sort of similar last summer, and I think there's a kind of I think increasingly we're seeing the transfer windows generally can be split in sort of 2 phases, which are, clubs have initial targets that they go out and pursue quite hard, quite early on, and they hope they land them and get them in for pre-season. And then there's almost kind of a second window closer to the deadline where things start to move, and a lot depends on kind of a domino effect in some instances. And there are quite a few dominoes certainly waiting to fall on the way out at Arsenal. I mean, you mentioned the squad is big. There is a long list of players who are available to leave, and I'm sure that that's a big part of the plan. How do they trim that down, and to what extent does that free them up to do more business? So hopefully that can get sorted out. You would think some of these players, I mean, the season is effectively underway next week, so hopefully that will motivate some of these moves to happen.
Well, that's it. Just a very final point on this is that we often think about it from the club's perspective, and do we, what do we do about all these players? But at the end of the day, these players also want to play. They want to play football, and hopefully the fact that the season is starting and there is the chance to go and play and train and, be part of a team and play regularly. You would hope that is going to drive some of the business that we need to do from an outward perspective.
Yeah. So Tavares and Okonkwo went out on loan this week. But I'm sure in the coming weeks, more are going to follow.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we'll leave it there for part 1. We will come back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. Before we go on with part 2, I just want to mention, I know I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago as well, that there is a story that we cannot discuss, and I just want to make it clear that we cannot discuss this for legal reasons. It's not that we're ignoring it. It's not that we don't have thoughts about it. It's not that we don't have concerns, but for legal reasons, it is not possible for us to discuss it or mention it in any substantive way. I know there's been a huge amount of discussion online and everything else, and there's not much we can do about that. But I just wanted to say to people who are listening, who would normally expect us to talk about something like this, to address it, that as and when we can, we absolutely will. But until then, we are bound by the law, and there is not a thing we can do about that. And we have to respect that, and we have to respect the process and everything else. So, that's it. You know, I know it sounds absurd. It sounds ludicrous because of how much is going around online and everything else. But from our perspective, and not just us, but, you know, newspapers, other podcasts, et cetera, that the idea of prejudicing an ongoing investigation, you know, for the sake of discussion, for the sake of anything else, is just not the right thing to do. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. Yeah, 100%. I wish there was more I could add, but there isn't. And yeah, it you know, our discussion of pre-season is kind of couched by that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there's, you know, a lot of excitement out there, and there's a lot of other feeling out there. And, you know, you're not alone in feeling like that there is an element of conflict when you're talking about football and not being able to talk about something else. You know, it's there, it's in the pit of my stomach and everything else. But as I said, as and when it's something that we can discuss and discuss properly and fully, we will do that. This is part 2, where we answer questions that you send to us on Twitter at Gunnerblog and at Arseblog, and also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member. On Patreon, you've got a few days to sign up for our Fantasy Football League.
I've got to do my team.
Yeah, you got to do your team. I've done my team already. I picked all the injured players I could pick. I better go back and check that they're all injured again.
Yeah. You want the good and injured ones.
Yeah, but I've picked like Dougie Jones and Steve Mallard and Craig Mike Stand. He says, looking around things, Bob Foam, you know, all of these guys who I've never heard of, who I assume will never play for the teams, you know, that they're playing for. So I'm hoping, you know, that I can really get as few points as possible this season. But there are big cash prizes: £500, 500 guineas for the winner, €500 it is for the winner, and there's Arsenal shirts and vouchers and the 4th place trophy and everything else. So if you want to sign up, patreon.com/Arseblog. Do you want to go first with a question, or will I?
You go first, Andrew.
All right, he says. I should have a question lined up, shouldn't I? I mentioned William Saliba, actually, and...
Who's that, sorry?
Matty, who's at Matty the Goon, said, simple question for the pod. Do you think Saliba is happy and content? He doesn't really look it. And there was one on the Discord here as well from Mumbai Gunner, who said after the game yesterday, players were talking to each other in smaller groups. The only player who was standing on the side by himself was Saliba. Do you think it's worrying, or is this just him being new to the group? Could it be that he's staying at Arsenal because he has to and not because he wants to?
Do you know what? That's not something I'm hugely worried about. I did not see him looking particularly disconnected during my time in the US. I think he seems to fit in quite well. As I mentioned last week, his English is far better than I expected. Naturally, he's new and he's settling in. And this is probably the least francophonic Arsenal squad I have ever known.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it used to be if you were French at Arsenal, that was you're in, you know, you were part of the gang.
Ooh,
but
yeah.
I think it's him. I wonder, does Sabi Lokonga speak French? Maybe Granite. But yeah, I mean, Pepe, obviously. But beyond that, and he may well go, it's not a very Frenchy Arsenal, which is weird. But I am not hugely concerned. Is he at Arsenal because he wants to be? That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. I think obviously he's got a contract. And one thing that a lot of people close to Saliba did say to me in the spring was he wouldn't want to just walk away with it feeling like a failure on his CV, that he's a very proud person, and having made the decision to come to Arsenal as a teenager, he would want to put that right and show Arsenal and show fans and show the manager, show the owners what he can do. So I think there is a real motivation there. I still think there is going to be a sort of element of suck it and see, like I do think he's going to want to see how this goes and how many minutes he gets before he commits in the form of a contract. But it looks good for him right now. I mean, it looks like he's going to start the Premier League season in the first 11.
Yeah.
And, that means something, right?
For sure. Like, it augurs well that he is the one, for example, who is starting that game yesterday and not Rob Holding. Like, I think if Rob Holding had started that game ahead of him yesterday, you'd be saying, okay, there's a problem here. There's an incompatibility here. There's something not right. But I think I said to you last week, he just looks like a serious dude. Like, that's
partly it as well. I mean, so in response to the original question, I mean, he's a very cool customer. He's not a guy who he can have a slightly detached air because that's sort of his demeanor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I do think as well there probably is an element of him settling in. Who are his mates? Who's he going to hang out with? Who does he connect with? On a personal level on the pitch. But I mean, there's plenty of pictures out there. If you want to just, take a moment where he's standing on his own, perhaps he's just standing there looking around going, whoa, look at this. Look at this fucking great stadium and these great fans on a sunny day, and we've just beaten Sevilla 6-0, and maybe he thought this might not happen, There could be an element of that, but there's plenty of pictures from pre-season where he's hanging out with the guys, he's hanging out with Ben White, I do worry sometimes that we always look for, perhaps and understandably at times, the most negative, and I'm not being critical of the people who ask the question, by the way. I think it's self-preservation in a way that you're looking for these things, but it might just take him a while to settle in. I think, if he's here and if he's a fixture in the first team between now and the World Cup, he's going to go to the World Cup, isn't he? With France?
Oh, yeah, almost certainly.
So,
and I think, I forgot to mention one French speaker in the group, which is obviously Gabriel, centre-half partner.
Oh, yeah.
Spent a couple of years with Lille. And I'm sure, and they would have come across each other in France, and I'm sure that will be helping him. Listen, I'm really encouraged and excited that he's here, that he's playing. He looks... He looks like everything you would hope him to be. I mean, there is something very commanding about his presence on the field. And in a way that I'm not sure any of our centre-halves quite have that degree of presence. Maybe Gabriel, but there is something about his particular combination of physicality with a very cool head that is very attractive.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be interesting this season to see what Mikel does with the three centre-halves that he has at his disposal. Because I think it's clear already that Saliba has moved above Rob Holding in the pecking order, and I'm sure Holding will play games in the Cups and in Europe. But when it comes down to the Premier League, it is Gabriel, it is White, and it is Saliba.
Can I just follow up on this one, if you don't mind, with a question from Henry Powell on the Discord? He said, with all the players fit, what would be your first back four or your first choice back four for the new season? And, I don't even know if we need to necessarily have that debate, because I wonder sometimes, where we're going, like, what happens when Tommy Asu is fit? What happens when Kieran Tierney is fit? Like, are they going to be happy? Are they going to be, who's going to be happy about being left out? And look, nobody's going to be happy about being left out. And my thought on this is like, this is a fucking great issue to have.
100%.
This is like, I prefer this. You know what? You know who the best back four is? The one that plays because they're in form or they're, doing the best in training or whatever it is. And again, I'm not being critical of the question in any way because I think it's a valid one, but I'd rather just see it play out. There's a load of football to play this season in Premier League, in Europe. We don't have to be quite as fixed about players starting every game. What if Tomiyasu only starts 65% of the games, but in 65% of the games is 100% fit? Is that not better than what we had last season?
Yeah, and some of these players we're talking about, Tierney, Tomiyasu, are guys who've had pretty substantial injury problems recently. So I think a measure of rotation is inevitable. I think, as we said in part one, there'll be horses for courses to an extent. Like I really like the back four we picked yesterday.
Yes.
Would I pick it away to Man City? I don't know. I might want Tomiyasu in and Tierney in and be a bit more stable defensively. But we've got that flexibility now. And I'm looking on that as a positive. But Saliba, when it comes to the centre halves, is the man in possession. And if he starts the Premier League season well, what's to say he won't stay there? And given where we were a matter of months ago and all the uncertainty that has existed around his time at Arsenal, that's huge, huge progress. And we've spoken about the business Arsenal have done, the signings they've made, and the old cliche of like a new signing. That's absolutely what he does feel like right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's have a question. This is about signings in a way. Alexander Muster said, do you think we still need a starting left eight? Looking at Xhaka right now, I guess it's difficult to argue against him. We also have Sambi, ESR and Vieira who could play here. Is a winger who can play across the front line the priority?
I mean, I think quite a lot of this depends on where they see Vieira.
Yeah.
Xhaka's played really well in pre-season.
I thought he was really good yesterday.
I thought he was very good yesterday as well. And to be fair, I think he was pretty good last season as well.
I know there are things that he can't do. None of us are saying he's Andres Iniesta, but he is very good. And actually, when you put Zinchenko in the left back role, and it sort of creates a bit of an interchange of position between them at times, I think that goes a little way towards offsetting some of what Xhaka doesn't bring in the opponent's half. But
yeah, if you were to ask me now to choose between the mythical left eight and another winger / forward who could guarantee us or give us goals, I think I'd go with the winger forward. I don't really have any great faith in Nicolas Pepe to score goals in this team, for this team. He came on
to get the minutes, really. Does Arteta even trust him enough to use him?
Well, that's it.
That's one of the concerns. Because when he plays, he's a goal threat, I think.
Yeah, but he doesn't play.
So if you have an opportunity to fix that situation, to get Pepe out and bring in somebody who more fits with the manager plan, I think that is probably the priority.
I think so too. What I would say though is that the left eight, or if you bring in another midfielder, it does insulate you somewhat or give you greater depth should you need to rejig your midfield at some point during the season. Mm-hmm. So I do wonder if that might be a consideration too. But, on the basis of what we've got, I would like to see another dynamic forward. And we've talked about the need to protect Bukayo Saka to some extent as well. And I do think that's important.
Yeah, I think so. Is there someone who can replicate what he offers? I'm not convinced there is, really.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be. But if you could add a player of the calibre of someone like a Rafinha that Arsenal really wanted, I do think that just brings you so much more depth and variety. And I'm fascinated to see what kind of impact Fabio Vieira is able to have this season. It's such a shame that he's carried this injury into pre-season and not been able to contribute thus far, because it means he's going to have to sort of build up minutes once the season is underway, and that's difficult, right? You need the right opportunities for a player to play. You don't just chuck them into a Premier League game from the start. But he's one of my sort of, it shouldn't be a kind of sneaky hunt for a player you've paid 35 million quid for, or whatever it is. But I think as the season wears on, I do think he's going to become an increasingly important figure in this team.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, the one thing I'd say as well is that, the first 5 games of the season with the 5 subs rule will probably allow you to give minutes to Fabio Vieira.
Right.
After Palace, it's Leicester, then Bournemouth, then Fulham, then Aston Villa. And look, I'm not taking a single thing for granted, but you would hope that we're in a position to give a guy some minutes to make a contribution when perhaps the game is not necessarily done and dusted, but in our control. Mm-hmm. Or even if it's not, maybe he's the kind of guy who can come on and change a game or change the dynamic of a game. So I do think, if he is fit and ready to be in the squad, if not necessarily ready to start just yet, by the end of August, we should be in a position where he is, much more match fit than he is right now, and hopefully then ready to kick on.
Yeah, and it'll be very interesting to see where predominantly he's used. I mean, you can play so many different positions in this team, 8, 10, wide, a sort of second striker. So, yeah, that I wouldn't be surprised if in the first instance he's kind of moved around a bit until they see where he begins to look comfortable. But, he may end up being Martin Odegaard's understudy as well for the first few months.
I think they probably have a good idea of where they see him and what kind of role they envisage for him. But we don't know, because we haven't really seen, where he's played. Pre-season might give you an idea of where a player is going to play. And I think, his first couple of substitute appearances might be quite telling in that regard.
Definitely.
Here's one from Banjo Martinelli Jr. It's a great name. His @ is Owen versus the World on Twitter. And he said, with reports that Reiss Nelson is to be given a chance this season, what are we to make of Pepe getting minutes yesterday in the final tune-up and Nelson only getting a last-minute sub? Is it just a chance to advertise Pepe one last time? I mean, I felt sorry for Reiss Nelson. And was it Albert Sambi Lokonga who came on, with a minute to go, and literally they just stepped on the pitch and the final whistle went? That must be so annoying as a player.
Yeah, he blew up as it ticked over 90, didn't he? There was no stoppage time even played. That was your chance, Reiss.
Hard luck, son. Off you go.
Yeah, well played. Not on long enough to make an impact. 6. I think... well, it's interesting. I think this was slightly blown out of proportion. It came off the back of an article my colleague Arthur Rocher wrote about Arsenal's wide options. And I don't want to paraphrase Art, but he said something like, Reiss Nelson could be given opportunities to impress. And I think people really extrapolated from that Nelson is our new winger. I'm not sure that's cut and dry. It feels like language that would be used internally to all the players. You'll be given your chance. But if somebody was willing to sign Reiss Nelson, I think Arsenal would be quite receptive to that, because it's difficult to see, isn't it, exactly where he sits within the squad. If he's barely even getting a kick in pre-season, you slightly fear for him once the competitive season's underway. I think it's time for Arsenal to make that decision on Nelson now, and probably sell him in a deal that won't look hugely attractive, but covers Arsenal in the back end with sell-on clauses and things like that. Something that protects them against his future development if he becomes a star. I think, what age is Reiss Nelson now?
23, is he?
23, yeah. Look, I don't... 22, 23 in December. He's still young. It's remarkable, really. But I don't doubt the talent. I don't see the pathway for him necessarily at Arsenal. and it strikes me that it's a good opportunity to move somebody on for a fee with some benefits down the line. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's time. I think he needs to go. He needs to go and play regularly. I really feel like, the season where he didn't go on loan in the summer and he didn't go on loan in January, and I think part of that was he decided that he didn't want to go on loan. He wanted to stay and fight for his place, which, on the one hand, you can say, well, fair play. On the other, I really feel like that was a season where his development stagnated. He just didn't play. He barely played, barely kicked a ball in an entire season at 20 years of age, 19, 20 years of age. And I think those seasons at that age are so critical for the development of a young player. Whether he would have made it at Arsenal or not, I don't know. But I don't think we'd be sitting here now talking about him in the same way if he'd gone on loan that summer as well. If he'd taken a season, played regularly somewhere, Arsenal might be more inclined to use him, but certainly other clubs would be more inclined to sign him.
Yeah, and even Feyenoord, the season ended well, but it took quite a long time for him to establish himself in their team. If he was to go on loan again within the Premier League, that might be interesting if he was under contract for long enough to make that worthwhile. But
what does he have, a year left on his deal? Or is there an extension?
I forget. He may have signed an extension when he joined Feyenoord on loan. I wouldn't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure I see, like I say, the pathway, the opportunity for him.
Transfermarkt says 2023, and it's not always right. So just...
Yeah, but that's an indication. I mean, it may be that, like I said, if it's my decision and there's a buyer, then I would sell.
Yeah.
At this point in time, and if we do start the season and we haven't brought in a wide player and Nelson is getting those minutes, I think that would be a bit underwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
Who wants a paranoid question full of fear?
Me.
Stefan Thor. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
He'll hammer you if you're not.
Yeah. Says, with Saka's contract not signed, City losing yesterday, and the seemingly friendly relationship between the clubs where they are willing to sell us quality players, are you starting to feel a tiny bit uncomfortable? Or is it just me?
Well, I don't think it's just you, but I'm not feeling uncomfortable.
No, but I think there are other uncomfortable people out there, Stefan. Reach out to them. You can hold each other in an embrace like Pat Rice and Arsene Wenger on the final day of that Premier League season until such a time as that contract is agreed.
I did say this before. I think he will sign a new contract with Arsenal.
So do I.
When, I don't quite know, but, he looks happy. He's got responsibility. Everyone loves him. The team is going in the right direction. Like if Arsenal were in the doldrums right now, if this was a team that didn't look like it was going anywhere, like if our summer centre forward signing was, I don't know, Andy Carroll, then I'd be a lot more concerned.
Plan B at last.
I would be a lot more concerned, but I just think that there's a momentum here that he is part of and will continue to enjoy being part of. And, I'm long in the tooth enough to know that, like, if he can't fulfill his football ambitions with Arsenal, he'll move on, as players have done in the past.
Yeah, I think
time immemorial. So, but Arsenal, I don't think we're there yet.
Arsenal have a lot to offer Saka right now, actually. I think Arsenal are in an unusually good position to be in this contract negotiation. I think they're obviously delighted with him, but I think he's pretty happy here. There was a great photo taken yesterday. I'm sure you've seen it, of Jesus, Saka and Martinelli from behind. And I thought that photo could make some appearances on social media over the coming season.
Yeah.
That front three as they play together and develop. I'm pretty confident on this one. And actually, like, something I sort of have been feeling generally about the squad and the club is that as we head into the season is, that sense of positivity. And that's why it's a shame that there are, some clouds hanging over the club in some respects. But when you look at the group of players we have, the ages that they are, it is just incredibly exciting. And I do wonder, like, a lot of the fans, when I was in America and chatting to them about why they started supporting the club, and, a lot of them was relatively recent. Some of them, it might have been the Invincibles, but some of that, it was, in 2008, 2009, 2010, Arsenal were this, exciting young team. They played really attractive football. If you didn't want to support, like, the big, super rich clubs, but you wanted to support kind of, one who played good football and had good prospects for the future. And I kind of look at the various squads in the Premier League now, and I think Arsenal might be in a place where they've sort of positioning themselves as that again. And it feels familiar, and it feels right. Like, it feels like it matches kind of what Arsenal has represented for a lot of people. So
yeah, I mean,
I feel encouraged by that.
Yeah, for sure. From a footballing perspective, it is very exciting, and I've lost count of the amount of questions that we had, on Twitter and on the Discord as well. It's just literally, how excited are you, for the season to start based on what we've seen in pre-season and what we've done with the squad. And, it's difficult not to be excited and to feel like we are going in the kind of direction we've wanted us to go in for a long time. And for something cohesive and strategic and sensible and intelligent to be built at the football club, and for it to pay dividends on the pitch. Of course, we've got to go out and we've got to translate this preseason form into Premier League points and all the rest. We know that. Everyone knows it. But like you say, the age of the squad, of the best players that we have in the squad, for the most part, early to mid-20s. And they're potentially going to get better. And they're going to get better at Arsenal. And if they get better at Arsenal, Arsenal get better. So how can you not be excited by that? So
yeah, absolutely.
Is it my question?
I think it's you. Yeah, I asked about Saka's contract.
Do you want another miserable one? Or another?
Please, come on. There's been way too much optimism on this podcast.
I know. This one comes from Stevie, who's had breakthrough 50. And he said, a couple of times you've discussed the possibility of an unexpected departure from the squad to balance the books. Who would you consider a possibility if this happens? I have a hunch about Smith Rowe, hopefully not, due to fitness issues. And it's quite interesting. There was somebody was talking to me yesterday on Twitter going, how long will Smith Rowe put up with this? I was going, well, put up with what? Being given the number 10? He's not fully fit, etc., etc. But there does seem to be a sort of sense that maybe, Smith Rowe could be on the outs. I don't get it. I don't see it myself. After what he did last season and the progress he made, I'm excited to see what he can do when he's fully fit. But, obviously the fitness issues will raise question marks in the minds of some people.
Yes, I think I've always thought that if there is a surprise departure, it might be at centre-back, just because of the numbers. And somebody like Rob Holding, I know that he's not, a key component of the first team, but I think he was pretty important last year, and I think it would be a slight surprise if he went between now and the end of the window, but I could foresee it happening. It was interesting, actually. I sort of hesitate to tell this story because I fear it will be misinterpreted. But when we were with Edu and he was talking about selling players, and I don't know if anyone else used this quote, but much as he spoke a lot about the need or the fact that selling players will be part of this project eventually, right? That's the reason you build value in the squad, is to eventually cash in on it. And, he said, let's just say we sell Bukayo Saka. And then he was very clear. He's like, we're not going to do that, but let's just say. And there was another instance where he kind of went, if we have so much value in the squad now, if someone wants to come and talk to us about, say, Gabriel, come on then. And he kind of was like, bring it on, was the attitude with which he said it, because he knows Arsenal would be in a very strong position on that particular player. But I just thought it was interesting in the context of stories about Gabriel and Juventus. Who knows? To be honest, I don't think Juventus could pay a fee that would make Arsenal remotely interested in selling Gabriel. But
yeah, I mean that is the thing though. When you build a squad of good players, like nobody cares if you sell, a Mustafi. Nobody gives a shit, but they care when the player is good, and you've got a bit of a connection with them. And look, you've got to make some difficult decisions at times. Like we had a discussion this time last year, like, what are Arsenal going to do with Joe Willock? What should they do with Joe Willock? And, he had that incredible run for Newcastle, and you're thinking, well, we could do with a player who scores goals from midfield. That seems like a thing we could add. But in the end, the money was good enough. And, with all due respect to Joe, I don't think we necessarily missed him. But you can't, on one hand, complain that your club doesn't sell players for enough money. And then, what am I saying here? I've lost my train of thought. I mean, you literally can't sell shit players for big money. It's not possible. Nobody can do it. So if you sell a player for good money, chances are it's a good player. And a player that some people are going to like,
And sometimes... I mean, the good sales that Arsenal have made in recent years have probably been Joe Willock, Alex Iwobi,
Emi Martinez.
And I think there's a case that Emi Martinez is a good sale. And that's not to say that Emi Martinez is not a good goalkeeper and that we got loads more for him than he was worth, but simply that we had a sort of surplus of goalkeepers at that particular point in time, right? Well, we had Bernd Leno.
Yeah, but we also got more for Emi Martinez when we sold him than we would have done if we had sold him 2 months previously before the Leno injury. Like if Arsenal had sold Emi Martinez for 2 million, 3 million, before he had that run in the team, I don't think anyone would have really batted an eyelid.
No, of course not.
They wouldn't. But, so the value is created by the quality of what a player gives you on the pitch.
Yeah. And I think sooner or later, probably not this summer, but maybe next summer, we've spoken today about Kieran Tierney. Potentially clubs might be looking at someone like Gabriel, Emile Smith Rowe, the question mentioned. Probably as soon as next summer, a player we like is going to leave the club because someone's going to come in and say, this guy's not played loads of minutes for you. We're going to offer him all the minutes and we're going to offer you a very healthy price for him. And in that position, Arsenal will sell. And there'll be debate about whether or that's the right thing or not. But that will just be part of squad development. And, this is what the big clubs do. We're celebrating signings Zinchenko and Jesus from Man City. But Man City are looking at it and thinking, well, we've brought in, is it Alvarez, the striker who scored against Liverpool yesterday? And he looks like an incredibly promising player, 4 years younger than Jesus. Almost certainly going to be an Argentinian international. So that's what happens. And it might be somebody, if it's like an academy player, it'll feel odd and it'll feel sore. But, people debated Alex Iwobi at the time and it looks like a very good move at this particular juncture. I don't see anything happening with, any of these big players, Smith Rowes and Gabriels and Tierney's before the end of this window. I just don't see it.
No.
But a surprise sale, maybe a holding. It's hard to see too many more than that, though, isn't it?
It is because, they are going to get, hopefully, move on the likes of Pablo Mari, Hector Bellerin, Reiss Nelson we've talked about, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Lucas Torreira. There's plenty to go. But, I do think someone, if you're confident that Saliba is going to be around, and maybe even if you're not confident Saliba is going to be around for longer than the 2 years he's got left, but it feels like a good time to cash in on someone like Rob Holding. Like now would be a good time. You could see a role for Rob Holding in this squad this season.
Oh, he's going to play Europa League.
Yeah, exactly. Europa League. There's going to be injuries. There are going to be games where maybe we need to do the Rob Holding, charge of the Light Brigade. But what's the reverse of charge of the Light Brigade? Put up the Rob Holding wall, whatever it is.
The bus or whatever.
Yeah, so you could easily see how there might be a role in the squad for him. But equally, if someone comes along and sticks 20 million down for Rob Holding, you're taking it,
and also there's the players' side of this as well,
Yeah.
Do you want to be the kind of guy who comes on for the last 10 minutes, or do you want to play week in, week out in the Premier League at 26? Sooner or later, that's a question he's going to have to, or he may face,
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is true. I mean, I think I was looking the other day, and Rob Holding's been with us for, 5 years now? Is it 5 years?
He joined the same summer as Xhaka, so
16,
yeah.
So 138 appearances in 6 years. So 138 divided by 6. So it's an average of 23 appearances a season.
He plays.
It's all right, but like if you go to I don't know, Forest or Leicester or
Everton,
like
whatever it is.
Would you be happier playing 38 games a season and cup games and everything else? It depends on the kind of role that he sees for his career. And we're speculating here,
exactly.
But,
I mean, he could go. He could go to another club. A couple of seasons there. He's club captain. Like he's a hero. Do you know what I mean? I do think there's a parallel career, an alternate career for Rob Holding, where he's a very solid Premier League centre-half who plays week in, week out.
Yeah.
But he loves his time at Arsenal.
Yeah,
he loves the players. He loves the club. But I don't know. I feel like in the next year or two, it's going to be the time. Typically, players make that call as they get into their late 20s, that they see that their time is finite and they wish to maximise their time.
Well, he's 27 in September, Rob Holding. So, this does feel like the kind of time where that decision might come from him if he's minded to make it. So we'll see.
But we'll see. I mean, like I say, that would be a slight surprise. Because honestly, when I look at the rest of the squad, I think we know who's staying and who's going for the most part. Yeah.
Let's do a couple of quick ones to finish off. Hell Caraxe, I don't know, on the Discord, who says, assuming Jesus is our top scorer this year, who will be second? From Saka, Martinelli, Smith Rowe and Eddie.
Are we saying all competitions?
Yeah.
Then I think it will be Eddie.
Ooh.
I think those Europa League games, if he continues scoring at them in the rate that he has done previously, plus the Premier League minutes, I think he'll get up there. What do you think?
I was going to say Saka.
Because of the pens?
Yeah, because there was a question, let me see, from Gabby. Don't know what that means.
I think it refers to our three Gabriels in the squad.
Thanks.
Gabby.
Gabby. At Magnus_Holmberg, he said, Saka took the penalty the other day. Do you think he's our designated penalty taker? Is he the best one at the club? I thought that was an interesting, he was fouled. None of this Thierry Henry, I got fouled, so I'm not taking the penalty nonsense. None of that.
Listen, I like him taking them, and I especially like him scoring them. And I love the redemption narrative from the Euro 2020 miss. I will say he's not taking penalties that make me think, wow, this guy's some penalty taker. He's not Robin van Persieing the ball into the top corner.
Sure.
But then maybe that's fine. I mean, most penalties are scored. So if he's the best person, great. I'm sure. I've never seen Jesus take a penalty.
I just looked up his penalty stats.
Yeah, go on.
Penalties scored, 5. Penalties missed, 7.
Wow.
So I was a little bit surprised yesterday that it wasn't Gabriel Jesus who stepped up and took it, but I'm guessing that on the training ground, they've sorted out the pecking order, like when X and X and X and X is on the pitch, this is who takes it. So,
yeah, and ultimately, you know, his penalty yesterday wasn't spectacular, but maybe there's more to it. Maybe he's seeing that goalkeeper go the other way and just thinking, I'll roll it. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of players who would like it. You know, Gabriel Martinelli strikes me as a guy who'd be desperate to take penalties and score the goals.
But didn't you say on this very podcast last season at some point, like if I was Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith Rowe, I'd be, lining myself up for penalty duty.
Yeah, I did. And they were listening.
They were?
It turns out they were listening. I don't know. But
so, yeah, that's why I'm going to go Saka. And then I'm going to pick a third. And it'd be a close run thing between Eddie and Martinelli. But I'm going to go Martinelli. I just have a feeling that this is the season when the goals start going in for him.
That would be great. I mean, if to be honest, if Gabriel Jesus, Saka and Martinelli can get themselves all three, over 15 goals. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not obsessed about one guy's got to get 20. Like, if Jesus doesn't score 30 goals or 20 goals, I ain't going to lose any sleep over that. It's all about the collective. And it's actually probably healthier for us if it's shared around.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not forget Emile Smith Rowe scored a lot of goals for Arsenal last season.
He did, yeah. I mean, he got, 11 goals last season?
So there's a few
who
could be in contention. Maybe Eddie's not going to play enough minutes, but I'll stick to my prediction.
Okay.
My general point is I think Eddie's going to score goals. That's my general point.
No, I think he will, and I think you're right. If we can get a couple of EFL Cup games, he's got the Europa League group games, I think he will score goals, and I think he'll score goals at Premier League level as well. Maybe the thing that he needs to be able to do, in the Premier League is have an impact off the bench. And I haven't looked it up really, but it strikes me that most of Eddie's goals come when he starts rather than when he comes off the bench. But that could be just circumstantial.
Weapon for Arsenal.
Yeah,
if
it would.
He could, be this kind of guy that you could turn to in those moments. I've always said that. I always think Eddie's sort of best case scenario. I always think of when Hernandez was at United, and he was just such a good penalty box predator, and they could use him, to start some games, but often off the bench. And he wasn't especially physical, but he just had a sense of where to be. And I think Eddie does share that. So we'll see. All
right, Cathal Lynch, who's at _CL72_ said, "Afternoon, gents. Would love a quick discussion on Gary Neville's growing bitterness towards Arsenal."
He really bit back today. Did you see that on Twitter?
Yeah.
Because people are still digging him out over the whole Arsenal don't have a plan. I can't see what the plan is. Which is fair enough. That was listen, if I was picked up on everything stupid I've said on this podcast, I'd be in big trouble. But
it's okay. All the aggregators will do it like the minute this podcast finishes.
Arsenal to sell Gabriel.
Yeah.
Gunnerblog confirms. But
Juventus. In for Gabriel.
I think. I think. So anyway, I think he warrants a bit of stick for it, but he really bit back and was like, Arsenal have, stuffed their best ever chance of top 4 or something like that.
Yeah. Is that the strategy? You blew up with the best chance you'll have of finishing 4th. Is that the strategy?
But also, it's a stupid thing to say because the other answer to the question is, well, no. That's
Why
nothing
would
to do
that
with
be
the strategy.
anybody's strategy anyway?
Yeah.
Our strategy is to get within touching distance of the Champions League and then blow it. Yes, what a tremendous idea that is.
Strategy is to build a better squad, a younger squad that has more value in it. And you can't really argue that Arsenal are doing that. Obviously, the results on the pitch, there's certain other variables at play, but we finished above his beloved Manchester United, at least.
That is true. That is true. I know he's been very quiet about Cristiano Ronaldo not just not turning up, and everyone is like, well, that's all right.
That's
mad, isn't it?
Situation. Yeah. The King, didn't he say on Instagram, the King will play on Sunday? He's playing today.
The King will play. Did he really say that?
Yeah, he commented on a post saying the King will play on Sunday.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's very funny. I mean, they're paying him so much money, and he basically just didn't come to training for quite a long time.
Just like, fuck it, I don't, I want to leave. And then it's like, it doesn't matter what I do. I'll do whatever I want. This is crazy. Like, I don't know why there isn't, more reporting on this, but there you go. Final one comes from Aaron Sidwell on the Discord. He said, why can't Nigel Winterburn say Sevilla? There are about 12 different renditions of the name. It reminded me of Benedict Cumberbatch's problem saying penguins. And if people haven't heard that, here's Benedict Cumberbatch trying to say the word penguin.
Is penguins, crested penguins, parent penguin heading home. So why are these woodlands so attractive to penguins?
Do you ever see a penguin?
A penguin?
Penguin.
That's so weird. That strikes me. Cumberbatch strikes me as the kind of guy who would think he's landed on the correct pronunciation and everyone else is wrong.
Maybe so.
How was Winterburn saying Sevilla? I didn't notice.
Did you not notice? I mean, sometimes it was Seville.
Right.
Sometimes it was Sevilla. Sometimes it was Sevilla. There were about 4 or 5. It was quite
I was
funny.
too cross at the
lack of goals
for continually cutting away from the Arsenal counter-attack.
What was that? There was one. There was one in particular. I think, did they have a corner? And the commentators are going, oh my goodness, what an amazing distribution that is from Aaron Ramsdale.
Yeah.
And we've got a close-up of Lopetegui on the sideline just sort of standing there going, oh, this is...
They did Ramsdale a few times, actually. Yeah. Like there were a few raking passes, I gather.
I didn't see them.
So he'll be furious, I imagine. Words will be had. But I mean, listen, I enjoy a close-up of Ben White. We all do. But not when there's a counter-attack happening and we nearly score.
It was tough going at times. I
demand my £6 back.
I laughed my head off at halftime when it was Adrian Clark and Nicole Holiday doing the halftime, and they're both standing there with these enormous, I think these are like pitchside microphones, pitchside boom mics with the big, pop shield, the big windshields on them. And they're standing there holding these gigantic things like, oh, no big deal. We're just, this is completely normal, standing, talking into those microphones. It was very funny. Very funny.
So, some frustration there. And Nigel Winterburn, listen, it was lovely to hear him. Does he do a lot of stuff for Arsenal.com?
He must do. I think he does all right, yeah. Because normally I don't get the Arsenal.com coverage on things, but given that it was only on Arsenal.com.
Well, look, if he's working for them next season, he'll have a lot more. I fear for him in the Europa League, to be honest. Some of the teams who might come up against there.
We need to just send him to Sevilla Zoo so he can just sort of chill out with the penguins. The penguins.
Speaking of birds, by the way.
Uh-oh. Yeah?
A guy on Twitter called Johnny, who's at Fruit All Sorts. I sort of can't believe this. He sent me, he's reworked the lyrics to North London Forever, The Angel, to be about magpies.
No way.
Yeah, he just said, I don't know if you read your DMs. And I've exposed the fact that I occasionally do here. Some of the Arsenal news has been a bit grim for the last couple of days, so I had to funnel that into a magpie-based North London Forever tune. And I'll just give you the chorus, right?
Okay.
So it goes, fuck Magpies forever. They're black and white feathers. I much prefer crows. And my heart will love magpies never. Their beaks will forever make me feel cold.
Oh, I love that.
Now, I will tell you that I replied to him saying, thanks, Johnny, I love this. And he said, oh, that's good, because I've got the first verses to go with the chorus. So if I won't subject you all to it now, but if I get a spare moment this week, I will lay down.
Oh, my goodness.
Johnny's verse.
In the style...
If there's sufficient demand...
In the style of Lewis Capaldi.
In the style of Lewis Capaldi, yeah.
I don't even want to go there. Let me just read this out, because this was good, actually, from Jadrodro. Let me see if I'm pronouncing that right. Ladrodo. I think it's Ladrodo, anyway, on the Discord. I apologize if I got that wrong. And he said, this isn't much of a question, as there's much more of a story I need to tell you. My girlfriend and I live together and have 2 dogs. One, Squid, is very scared of thunderstorms. We live in the southern US, so it storms regularly during the summer, and whenever it does, she shakes and pants and tries to hide in the closet. We've tried all kinds of things to calm her down during storms, but the one remedy that seems to have worked recently is giving her a good dose of the Arsecast Extra. Last week, I came home to hear James and Andrew's voices coming from down the hall. I walked down to see, as maybe I'd left the podcast on earlier or something, but no, my girlfriend had set up the phone on Spotify in Squid's crate, and there was Squid calmly sitting there listening to you two talk about Arsenal's US tour. So thanks very much for all you do. I mean, we're basically dog whisperers now as well. This is incredible.
Absolutely incredible. Well, I don't know how comforting the dog will have found me singing Fuck Magpies Forever, but yeah, hopefully it's still calm and settled.
All right, well, listen, give Squid a good pat on the head for us, and hopefully there are no more storms for her to deal with. We will be doing plenty of stuff during the week because it is the build up to the new season, so we will be previewing the new season. We'll have preview podcasts. We'll have our preview podcast on Patreon as well. So keep an eye out for all of that stuff. As always, thank you so much for listening. Apologies for the weird timing, but, you know, we're going to have to get used to this over the coming weeks, and we will catch you on the next one.
Oh, and good luck to the Lionesses. Although,
it's kicking off now.
They'll probably know the result by the time we listen to this, but yeah, especially the Gooners in that team. Okay, bye-bye.